for a week. I didn't know she wasn't gonna be here
Yeah,
because
yeah.
she said she'd wear a mask. And then I said to David, where, you know, she wanna ride with me? He said she's sleeping.
Does she have the COVID
Yeah, she
episode?
went on a vacation. And she, just before the last day she got back, I guess. She got it the day before.
Did she test, I guess?
She tested.
Yeah, tested.
Yeah. And David was sick, but I guess kind of like a cold. He said he tested positive too. Everybody tests positive. You know, I mean, so I don't know, you know.
I've been lucky. I've never had an episode.
Oh, you better knock on wood.
Well, I haven't, but I also don't have any tests. So if you don't test,
Well, I've never felt flu type illness. I've never had the temperatures, the cold sweats,
All the stuff,
so whatever,
none of it.
whatever goes along with it. It started 4 years ago.
4 years ago, my husband and I, neither of us has had
And
it.
I told Simone one time, this is a couple.
We did get the vaccination,
I got them too.
but so did Debbie. Debbie's had all of it.
Door.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
it doesn't necessarily eliminate that you're gonna get that. You're gonna get COVID, but it may
Driving down.
Lessen,
the right.
maybe.
This is like last week.
It's a,
I stopped at the crosswalk.
Yes, okay.
There's a guy
you
running.
know, it's a big guess.
Well, and
And I
they
think, well,
also now,
he
the doctors,
ran up
right,
the street instead of
if it
crossing.
tests positive, we're not gonna do
Next
anything.
thing I know, the truck behind me is.
Same
I'm doing
symptoms,
30,
yeah, that's a
35.
real bad flu or a very mild flu. So
Passes me. over.
they don't give you anything.
I thought there was a, what the heck was
And then I'm so upset. I said, I should have got this freaking, number or something, but it was just so, so obnoxious.
It's a
They can-
7-day regimen, I think, somewhere along
Here
that
he
line.
is.
5 days.
Waiting for you.
Thank
Okay, good to see you. Debbie's
How you doing,
here
Joe?
today.
Good, very good.
Okay, now that Joe's here, no Debbie.
No, Debbie.
Nope, you got me
Okay.
sick. Oh, okay.
So sick.
How are you?
Need to order
Good, how are you?
two.
Good, thank you.
In attendance, we have Selectmen River, Aspar, and O'Brien. And we'll begin by public comment. Members of the Marlboro community are invited to share their thoughts with the Board of Selectmen. Speakers must provide their name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Would anybody like to say anything?
I'll say something.
Okay,
Carrie Markey, 224 West Road,
wait, 224.
West Road.
Oh, hi.
Sorry. So I don't have much of a comment other than I understand you're discussing the emergency communications tower, and the bid from the company. And as someone that lives right next to the location or one of the proposed locations, I'd like to understand a little bit more about not only the location next to the cemetery, but also the secondary location by the firehouse and how those decisions were made. I came to these meetings many years ago when this project first started, and there's been so much change over time. So as a resident, I feel like we're not always getting the most accurate picture of what's going on. And no one here, but maybe some people haven't been as truthful in the past. So I just like full transparency about where we are with the project.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll find that we're gonna be discussing that and we actually have a lot of papers. But anyway,
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Sure, Ross, 11 South Buckle. And, reiterating everything that Ford said, and I go down a few comments. One was the first one is that it appears that the project scope is either expanded or totally changed. I mean, is this now a communications tower or is it an emergency communications tower? I don't know what we're calling it now. You guys would be able to inform us, I'm sure. The town has spent upwards of $10,000 to clear the site next to the cemetery. Apparently that's not in play right now. I'm not sure why we spent that money to begin with. Now, the town originally budgeted approximately $100,000 for the project. So if this project is going to yield income, which I'm assuming that's what we're discussing here, or what you guys are looking at, is what happens to the rest of that $100,000? Where does that go? Does that go into the mutual pot for the town, or where is that going to be spent? And the last thing I have is well, two more things, excuse me. Is this tower going to include an emergency communications antenna? That was the original project, 100-foot wood, emergency communications only. The project has been Project Creep and expansion on this dramatically. So is it going to include an emergency communications antenna? And then thirdly, when will the contracts be available to the public?
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
When will the contracts
Mhm.
be available for review by the public?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we'll move right into, what we're here for. Any more comments?
No.
No, okay, so thank you. So let's go, right into it. The special meeting, we recommend to the town for the approval of a wireless telecommunication facility lease agreement with the Wireless Edge Towers LLC. I'll let David.
Sure. So I think that when you talk about sort of scope creep and sort of changes there, when we first were discussing this, it was going to be an emergency communications only tower. I think wooden, approximately 100 feet tall, et cetera, and was going to cost the town money. We had set aside $100,000 to construct that, to prepare the site and to construct the tower. And then the town, if that was the only equipment on the tower, the town would take on, a new responsibility to maintain this tower in perpetuity, to fix it when it needed to be fixed, to do all sorts of things to it. So it would be an ongoing expense. What I proposed based on my experience in the prior community was that there are in fact companies that are very, very good at this. This is essentially all that they do, is they build and maintain towers and then lease space on them to wireless providers, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, some other regional ones as well. And so I suggested that we put out a request for proposals and see if one of these companies might be, well, hopefully more would respond. But if we could find one of these companies that would be willing to take on the cost themselves to build the tower, to enter into a long-term land lease. So the town would still own the property, but this company would take on responsibility for constructing and maintaining the tower. They would make sure that there was space on the tower for all of our emergency communications equipment. And in fact, in the RFP and in all three responses, they would also purchase at their own expense all of the emergency communications radios that we told them we needed. So essentially at little, close to no cost to the town. I know that we already have some money into the site preparation. That's why I say a little bit of money. They would do this, and then they could lease other space on the tower to non-emergency communications providers. And then they would share those revenues from the other providers with the town. They would, in addition to paying for the land, they would also enter into a revenue sharing agreement with the town for, if AT&T pays them X, the town would get their cut. So that's how we structured the RFP. We received 3 responses. One of them is far more impressive than the other 2, both in terms of the financial terms that they are offering. But I think that the reason that they feel comfortable offering those financial terms is because this company has a lot more experience, particularly working with municipalities and building similar towers all over the country, and essentially doing this model. I will say that I believe one of the other respondents that I am not recommending wanted a significantly taller tower. I think they wanted 195 feet. I felt like that was not in keeping with the town of Marlborough and really would have looked kind of garish. So this company that I am recommending that we at least move forward with, Wireless Edge Towers. Gosh, I looked at these. I would have to refamiliarize myself with it. I think that they are requesting 135 feet, but I would have to double check and get something like what that is. So don't hold me to that. I would need to reread it because I have so many numbers going through my head. But what the terms that they are asking for are a 30-year lease. They would construct the tower. They would go out and market it to the wireless carrier. They would purchase all of our equipment. They would pay us not only an upfront fee, which I believe was $50,000 after, because they have to go to the state siting council and get approvals, and there's a whole process. Even after the town says, hey, yes, we would like to move forward, there is a process. Once they get approval and they get the building permit to start construction, there is, I believe it's a $50,000 payment to the town. And then once it is constructed, I believe that the annual rent is $42,612 per year.
3%.
Yes,
3%
and
increase.
each year there's a 3% escalator to keep up with inflation. You know, that wouldn't have kept up with inflation the last few years,
No.
but if you look at it over the long term, and hopefully where we'll be in the future, that helps us keep up with inflation. And then for that 42,000 and change is for the tower with one tenant. If they will also try and market it to a second and potentially third tenant. For tenants number 2 and 3, they would, share with us in full transparency a copy of the contract they were able to negotiate, and there would be a 50-50 split of those rents. So the town could receive additional monies if they are successfully able to attract.
I just
more
want to
tenants.
interject something. When we originally took, because you weren't here when we originally did the tower, it was always with the intent that there would be somebody coming on to be on that tower. So it was not only for the communication for our safety needs, but there was always going to be somebody there. And the discussion took place. It was really to give service, service that people don't have. They have intermittent service. A lot of people were here pushing for that. They wanted that because they didn't have cell phone service, adequate cell phone service. I'm sure everybody's heard that. So when they were talking about that, they were saying they'd probably have one. They would probably never have more than one because there's not enough people out there that would want these other services. Just as this is additional information. Any of you want to jump in and discuss it?
Yeah, I got a question. Maybe David could help us. We presented to the public at the beginning of this a particular design, a particular wooden pole, et cetera, and this is what we had presented to the neighbors and to the residents. How much have we changed from the original proposal, from what we told the neighbors and the people in that, to what they're going to end up with if we sign the contract?
So there are, and we can certainly, this document already is, anyone can request it, but we can proactively put it on the website for people to see. But there are actually some images, some photographs of similar facilities that they have already built elsewhere. And what they are proposing is a monopole. So it would be a pole, not a tower, and I believe that they proposed kind of one of two options. One would be something that looks, or is supposed to look, kind of like a pine tree. So the trees around it, it might be a little bit taller than the tree line. And the other one was sort of a round pole that would also kind of blend in, try and stand out as little as possible. So, I mean, they do have experience building these, they do, they're trying not to build anything that is going to look awful or garish. They're trying to work.
Now, I will say, they said here they proposed a monopine or brown monopole up to a height of 150 feet.
Right.
Now, when we were talking before, it's kind of hard to remember, it's been a couple of years.
100.
We were up to, can you remember?
100.
What was above that?
The initial one was at 100.
And we were
By
120.
the time that I sort of entered the picture, and we started talking to potential carriers,
Yes.
because the plan was always to add
Right.
something on there, they really wanted at least 125.
That's what I remember, 125. I'm just saying, so they've said up to 150 in the
Yes.
agreement that we have here, just adding that in. Anyway, other comments?
We've been working on this since March of 2022.
Right.
It's been a
Any
long time.
comments about this?
No, I think it's fabulous.
I thought, I have to say, I was surprised by it, and surprised by what they're offering. The other thing that they've also offering, that in the addition, if they add another carrier, we get half the money. So whatever they get in the sense of money,
It's gonna be a moneymaker.
it's wonderful.
Mhm.
I think I would add to your comment, what would happen with the money that we haven't spent goes back into the general fund. Yeah.
Well,
No, okay,
the $100,000, and we have spent
we've spent some,
a little bit, I think it's around 10.
Ten.
yeah,
So what the 90 remaining, that $100,000 was pandemic era American Rescue Plan funding.
that's right.
So we have until, I believe it is December 31st of this year to reallocate it.
That money, that's
And
right, I
then
forgot about
another year, or maybe it's even 2 years to spend it. So if we were to move forward with this and say, we no longer need to spend that money constructing it ourselves, we could reallocate that $90,000 to some other eligible
But
project.
let me just make this comment. Well, we knew for a fact if we couldn't build it for the 100,000 or whatever, it was gonna be over budget. We were gonna have to come up with more money. And I forget, Joe, can you remember how much additional money?
Oh, it was quite a bit.
It was a lot.
And it was because of those numbers, we decided not to be in the cell tower business. That's what we don't do best, and that's why we did not do it. So
Not our business.
it was strictly a business decision. So.
The money was a lot of money, a lot more money than the 100,000. That wasn't gonna do it. Originally, we were presented that it could happen. It couldn't happen with that money. So let's just say it was 140. I don't remember some of the figures were
It's
thrown
like
out.
200, if
Yeah.
not more.
Whatever, it was a lot.
Let me ask this, and let me throw this out on the table to the other people on the board here. Page 15 in the package that we had received, you would see that in Exhibit C, the structure of exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about and what we're gonna do. And what it says here, it says to be provided,
Right. They haven't picked their site yet.
huh?
They didn't pick their site.
No, but what I say, the structure, in other
It's
words,
here on page 13.
Yeah.
What it would look like.
that's exactly what it's gonna look
Yeah,
like?
yeah.
Or to be provided, which one is it?
This is monopine.
Yeah,
The figure 1, page 13 of 23. There's 23 pages. And this next page is your brown monopoles.
and they said it's gonna be one of the two. It's gonna be,
Look at the
Right.
bottom of your papers. You'll see page numbers. There it is.
yeah, page.
Yeah, page 13. They'll
13.
provide it once the contract,
Mhm.
once the contract's signed, they
I
will
see, okay.
they'll put a picture in there.
With respect to the site,
I apologize, we're not supposed to have a dialogue.
Yeah.
I get that, but we have such a small community here, no one's gonna jump up and down, throw plates at you. You know, it just,
We had lots of people on Zoom.
and well,
How many-
I bet you,
there's one person
I was
on
gonna
there.
say, if there's two,
You?
It's Mark Paul.
do we have a site? Have they proposed a site?
So I believe that they are planning on using the site by the cemetery, not the one by the ball field.
Right, yes.
So they actually prefer the site that we already did a little bit of preliminary work on.
And not near the fire department?
It wasn't the fire department, it was gonna be near the ball field.
Right, well, the ball field and fire department, I thought the fire department was also one of the options.
I think there's the fire department, and then there's the cemetery, and then there's this site.
Ball field.
What they proposed was a cemetery.
The one that they proposed
Is the
is
cemetery that we've
closer to
already
the
done some
cemetery.
work on. You know, that's the
$10,000
$10,000 we've spent on that. And that's what they're proposing, that they're proposing that.
I would need to reread it and just make sure I'm not conflating it with one of the other two proposals, but that is my recollection.
Let me ask this, if we sign this lease and we agree to lease wireless edge, this piece of property to build a cell tower, does the public have any input, any from this step forward? What will it look like? Will it not look like? Or once we sign this lease with them for the property, the public no longer has any weigh in or anything to say about this?
Question.
Well, they
We would-
have proposed here on the page, the memorandum, the monopine. So they've said what it's gonna look like.
Page
Okay.
13.
I think what Joe's asking is, once you put pen to paper, are we out of it? We can't come
Well, I
in.
assume they're gonna,
We would do well
We
to
can.
the extent that we want to negotiate something like the appearance. We want it to look like,
Understand.
you know,
Once you put
a
pen-
palm tree instead of a pine tree, for example. That would be silly, but
So once you put pen to paper.
we should do that
That's
before we
it.
sign. If we're going to negotiate something like that, we should have that conversation and those terms should be included in the final contract. They provided
Mhm.
a draft proposed contract, but it's not final.
Okay.
So at this point, they're basically saying, this is what we think would be best, you know, given what we know about the site. And I think they're trying to be collaborative. But if there are very particular requirements that we want, then we should have those conversations before we sign the contract.
Mhm.
And we're gonna have a town meeting.
Well, so that I was looking at the charter.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you are required to have a town meeting. In section 8.2, it says town meeting shall be called by the Board of Selectmen for the following purposes. I won't read them all, but the first one, I'll read the first and the last. The first says act on a recommendation to sell real estate used or reserved for town purposes. And the last one is such other matters or proposals as the Board of Selectmen in their discretion shall deem of sufficient importance. So in this case, we are not selling property, so it does not necessarily meet that requirement, the black and white letter of the law. We're entering into a long-term lease, but in my opinion, a 30-year lease, or with the extension, if we choose to accept that, a 50-year lease, you know, is long-term enough that it feels almost like a sale. It's not technically, but it's a very long-term lease where you're tying up this property for a particular purpose. And moreover, I mean, it's at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen, but I think this is of sufficient importance to the town that it would be worthwhile to have a town meeting. So that's my
I
recommendation.
totally agree.
I
I
agree.
would, just speaking for myself, I think we should, this has been a big issue. People have come here, we've discussed it, we talked about it. I, for one, think it'd be a good idea to have a town meeting, let the people come in and express their concerns, their opinions.
I think the key word here is transparency.
Yeah,
And I think that's really important on what we do.
Right.
I don't think the residents in this neighborhood had any idea that we were gonna have this in front of us today to make this decision.
This was very,
I know, I mean, how long have you known about this? That we were gonna make this decision to sign this lease today?
Well, about, am I allowed?
How long?
Probably about a month whenever your meeting and Zoom minutes were posted.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're not the next day, the next week. It takes a while. If you look back,
Mhm.
I think the last ones that are posted were July 2nd or July
that was our
9th.
last, that was our last
Yeah.
we
meeting.
did have, we only had one meeting.
Only
online,
one
right,
meeting.
So
exactly.
anyway, I look back and whenever they were posted, Joe, to answer your question.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
The other concerns that you may want to look at, but just jot it down. When you lease a piece of property, I don't know if it has to be under contract or not, but who's responsible for the security of that property?
Mhm.
Is the town going to be responsible for it? Or are they going to be responsible? My guess is they're going to wash their hands of that. And they're going to say, you got the police force, you friggin' take care of it. That's my guess. The other thing is who's going to be responsible for the liability? We have a windstorm, it blows down, it crashes into her house, and destroys it. Who's responsible for that? Whose insurance? Is it their insurance? Is it the town's insurance? Is that in the contract? I don't know.
Well, it certainly
You may
can.
know.
Yes, it's in the, it's in the
The
contract.
site security definitely is in the contract.
We're not
They
held
take
liable.
responsibility for that.
They take responsibility for
For site security, they're going to build a fence and they have install the logs. We are granted access to it.
And if it blows down, they have to put it back up.
Well, and any damage that may cause.
Exactly.
Well, let me just say this.
Okay, because I brought this up at one of the town meetings before. If you've gone out to the site, just so you have, and see where it was, how deep in the woods it is,
Yes.
you're gonna find probably a couple of beer cans there every weekend. And it ain't gonna be mine.
Let me just say this. If we,
Party area.
if we've made a decision, if we make the decision, we, the Board of Selectmen, make the decision to send this to town meeting, they will have all of this information, the proposed contract. All of the people have access to the whole in-depth thing. Yes,
Post this thing on the website.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It will be told so that everybody who comes to that meeting ahead of time will have all the information and will come together and we'll have the discussion before anything's signed. And to see how people feel. As you know, a lot of people want this tower. They do, they want better cell phone service. But anyway, the point is, we've been around it. We've had tons of meetings. Do we want to talk about the fact that we're going to have a town meeting? I think that kind of summarizes this meeting today and the purpose of this meeting. Yes,
Yeah, I
John.
thought we called this because there was a,
Motion.
well, yeah, but a timeframe as far as signing the contract, that's not, yeah.
No, so the only thing that you're deciding tonight is whether this is of sufficient importance to send to town meeting.
Yep.
It really is your discretion.
Okay.
Do you want to have a town meeting or not?
John, but you are right. Originally, we were thinking that's why we're coming together. But I think after we've all gotten this information in the last while, and we know what's happening, it's changed a little bit. Now, what we're saying is, are we in agreement with that? How do you all feel?
I'd like a town
Town
meeting.
meeting, John,
I'll go along with the
Joe?
majority.
No doubt, town meeting. I think the input from the residents in that area, in the neighborhood, or even what carries more weight than anything else. I mean, we sit here because they put us here.
Absolutely. We went to their houses. I know, well, Debbie and I went to your houses. Absolutely. So we've made a decision that we want to go to town meeting.
Okay.
When would you like to have that town meeting? I am,
Well, let me ask you this. One of the things I'm concerned about, it's summertime. And I want to make sure everybody has the opportunity. A lot of people are on vacation. Do we want to delay this to be fair to the public that we do in September when people have come back from vacation?
I have an idea. How about if we post this information and data ASAP? And right after Labor Day, this would
Yeah.
give the residents a time to look at it, digest it, give us input, everybody be back in town. And sometime after Labor Day, we welcome everybody to come for good input, lousy input, or whatever it may be. And we come to a consensus of opinion.
That's-
But I think at least 30 days for the residents to review it and look at it would be a reasonable length of time.
I
at
agree.
least 30 days. Okay, I was going to recommend no earlier than the 28th
Of what?
of
August.
On his
Of
first day of
August.
I would rather
first day of
September.
school. First day of
After
school.
I would after Labor Day.
Okay,
Remind me when Labor Day is this year.
It's early September.
Yeah, September.
Oh, okay. So-
You're talking about a week difference.
Yeah, I'm fine. No earlier than the 28th.
No,
And that was
absolutely
just in
not.
terms of,
No,
you
no.
know,
I think it's unfair to the public
Everything
because like I
else.
said, they have to get on board and aware that we're doing this and get it into the paper. Make sure we as pros, or you, I should say, it'd be you,
So,
making sure the public's aware that we're gonna
that
be
we get
having
into
this.
the paper, that we put it on Facebook, so people know.
Exactly.
Put up some signs around town so people know that it's happening.
So
Yes.
Labor Day is
Do you,
Monday, September 2nd.
do you want to pick a date right now
We should.
for the meeting, David?
That would be helpful to me, just
Do
so
it.
that we can start
Okay.
publishing it in
Should.
the paper.
That's what I was going to say.
What are you gonna
Let them know
suggest?
when
Somebody who has a calendar,
I got,
what day of the week do we want? Do we want,
Gotta pick a day that we don't meet, which is the 3rd. I think we're meeting the 3rd, right? For the selectmen, the first Tuesday.
what day do we
Yes.
use, what day do we usually have the public meetings on? Tuesdays, I think, don't we? Or Mondays, what is it?
We've only had one since I started, and that was on a Tuesday.
On the Tuesday, I think we have them on Tuesdays, so as long as it's not our
September
Monday.
10th is the following week, is a Tuesday.
How about that? How about
9,
September
10?
10th?
Do you want to do it on a night when the Board of Selectmen is scheduled to meet? Or does that not matter?
I'd rather it wasn't.
Prefer not to.
No,
Because,
no.
because it may take time, maybe depth. It's important that we hear the comments from as many people as possible and,
Exactly.
and not have any other business that night.
You
In
know
that
what?
case, September 10th would be
The
perfect.
10th would be
Done.
perfect
Scheduled to
because
meet
we
on the 3rd.
have a meeting right
and
after.
17th.
That'd be perfect.
Put the motion on the floor, Betty.
Okay.
Put the
Well,
date.
September
Do
10th.
I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that September 10th of 2024,
Second,
7 o'clock.
So
Okay.
Joe and John, okay. Okay, all those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
4-0.
motion passes.
David, let me ask you this. On that date, is it possible to have the people who are gonna be putting this up and doing it to add input and information instead of just us? Residents may ask what color it's gonna be, how high is it gonna be, et cetera, more of the nuts and bolts on what's gonna be there. Is that possible?
I will I suspect so. They're based in Rhinebeck, New York, which isn't that far away. So
Okay,
I can certainly call and ask
Yeah,
and see if they'd be willing to send someone out.
that would be nice.
That would be
Very
nice.
But I think as Joe was mentioning, we're getting this information out to the public
Given a whole.
way ahead of time.
Yep.
If they have any comments or things they would like us to think about to address, that would be nice. We come to the meeting and if you could have a representative, it'd be even better.
maybe we should put a little footnote in there to the residents that if you do have questions, please bring them to the public hearing.
Yeah.
mhm.
Or should we use if you have intelligent questions?
Okay.
So we got September 10th time?
Yes,
7
7
o'clock.
o'clock.
Always
It's probably gonna be at the school,
Yeah, that's my next
you think?
question, yeah.
I think that's the best place. to do it.
Cafeteria.
School library, the school
Yeah,
Cafeteria.
probably the
cafeteria,
cafeteria.
cafeteria.
We can Zoom there also,
Yep,
you
right.
know, put the Zoom.
So
on.
in the cafeteria, 7 PM. Okay, I think.
Done.
All done. That's the only thing we're here to discuss. I'm gonna ask the public, the same thing, same rules as before. Would you like to make comments?
We just have one other
We
thing,
got
which
Oh, I'm sorry.
the new hire.
the hire.
We advertised for and interviewed a number of candidates for the facilities and grounds foreman. And I included his application, but I'm recommending that we hire Dylan Russo.
I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Yes. Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we hire Dylan, which is,
Russo.
on your recommendation.
And I'll second
I
it.
have a second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, I think we're done with 2 issues we had to do, and we're moving right along. Anybody from the public, would you like to make any additional comments?
Sure.
I just wanted to
I
ask,
need your name and your,
Joan Doucette, 222 West Road.
okay?
Our property is adjacent to where you're planning on putting it out. Which from the get-go really upset me because we were never notified by the town of anything going on. The only way we found out about it was there were all blue ribbons tied all over the place when we came back from our vacation.
Yeah.
We called the town, oh, we're putting up a cell tower. You know, it's, our property is adjacent to that. We should have a little more information coming our way rather than all of a sudden there's gonna be a cell tower. Now there's an access trail that, you know, from the looks of where the pad is that you guys put in, it's like down farther away down toward the actual trail, main trail.
Near the parking lot.
Yeah, yeah. Is the access for that for, say, work trucks, whatever, that are gonna be coming in? Are they gonna be coming from that parking lot up? Or is it gonna be that access trail?
I don't know.
Because that runs right next
I
to
don't,
my
I don't
property.
think we can say that now,
That's a great question. I don't know the answer,
not now.
but we can try and find that out.
I think.
Sure, we can have that information by.
September, back to, those are some of the questions you can propose
Yeah.
to the town manager.
Yeah.
That are concerns that you have.
Sure.
Harry, anything else you want to say?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Terry, please.
Okay, I'll be brief. Carrie Markey, 224 West Road. So I appreciate this extra information. I'm very glad this is going to a town meeting. I would love to have a representative from the company there. For those of you who have been on this board for the past few years, we've heard from multiple quote unquote experts, all of the different story about what this may or may not look like. So it would be really great to have someone there. I'm obviously disappointed that this is where we've landed. I do feel like it's been a lot of smoke and mirrors over the last few years. There was a reason why this was named the emergency communications towers, because we were told there would be no carriers on it. It was solely for emergency. I do understand that there are residents in town that would like better cell service, yet at the same time, we've been told by those experts that no carrier would ever want to be on this pole because there's not enough population. So again, it's back and forth, seeming lack of transparency. Now the pole is bigger. Now someone else is going to be in control of it. I understand from a business perspective, this might be lucrative for the town, so I understand that completely. But as a resident, it's really disappointing. And I hope moving forward, especially under new town leadership, that there's better research and business planning. It's wild to me that years later you realized you couldn't afford it. And why weren't those questions asked originally? And how many other projects are happening in town where those questions are now asked ahead of time? So again, I hope under new leadership, there's a different process going on, but it's very disappointing.
Thank you.
I think in earlier meetings under David, that's exactly what we discussed. Exactly that premise that we need to be more transparent. We need to let people know. And I think David is taking care of it. I'm new to the board, so I wasn't aware, aware of what was going on earlier. However, that doesn't give me. So, yeah, I think that's what we're tending to do. That's David's position and the board is elected. Well,
Can I have a motion?
Okay.
I'm so.
Yeah,
Oh, we're friends.
We are. Hey, I tried to get you to go on to one of my commissions and you didn't do it.
I did it in the resume.
You know,
I said I want to double the salary that they're offering.
I'm gonna give you what I get.
Yeah, that's what I was
I'll
asking. That's what I
I'll
was
give you
asking.
double what I get.
Double the salary.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
Ross, go
okay.
ahead.
Briefly looking through here, I don't see anywhere in here where it gives an exact location of the site.
Yeah, there's a big pile of stuff. Did you?
Well, whatever was just handed me. And I'll look through whatever you guys put
Yeah,
on the website. I mean, most of this stuff is advertising, yes. Look what we did before, we did this, we did that, here's all the pictures, look how nice it looks on, that's a lot, that's what half of this package is. The other thing is, I brought up about, security and liability. Now, in the liability section, it says that they're gonna provide at least $1 million liability to, anything that, I don't know, something blows up on the tower and throws a rock through their windows or whatever, I don't know. But as far as security goes, it says it started as part of the site planning with the town, Wireless Edge will work with the town on security measures and procedures to access the facility. You're gonna work with the town on security measures. Doesn't say they take responsibility for security. It says they're gonna work with you. So that's pretty vague and that's pretty vague as far as I think, anyway. You guys have gone through contracts more than I have. I have not on something like this. So it says, we're gonna work with you on security measures. That doesn't hold any water.
you know,
if
We-
you
we
look at
can
it a
do
little
some-
further, you can see that
but
the
Tom, we're not
contract.
gonna dialogue. We
Okay,
can't
I'm sorry.
dialogue with the public. We can listen to them and, otherwise that, we
Yeah,
don't
we're
get
not
out of
gonna
here.
change that.
Go ahead.
You talked about, that's another thing, you guys talked about possibly changing that. I mean, there are other committees that I've been to, and a dialogue is perfectly acceptable. Because sometimes you ask a question, and we had a brief dialogue, which I appreciate that, I really do. But other meetings that we have been to, the three of us and others as well. You ask a question, you put something out, and then it seems to die somewhere. It just goes away. You know, rather than have, and like, I realize that you don't want to have a dialogue sometimes, you get something, but jump up and down, and yell and scream, and I get that. I understand, maybe, master at arms over here or something to take care of them. But just having a reasonable conversation, with somebody to ask, what about this? Well, geez, I don't know. Let me look into that for you. But we don't even get that at these meetings, like, hey, let me look into it, because you're not allowed to respond like you cut him off. You see, so maybe you should also consider having a comment section, I get that, and maybe a bit of a dialogue. Not throughout the whole meeting, because that would disrupt tremendously. I get that. You can't do that. But maybe a portion of the meeting and limit that to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something where you could have a dialogue with the board of selectmen, the town manager, and get a better feel for what's going on.
Okay. Can I have a motion
I'll
to
make a
adjourn?
motion to
All right.
adjourn at 4:41.
Very much.
Have a great day.